Welcome to Baseball Biz on Deck, and aren't you in for a wonderful Thanksgiving surprise? I know the good folks up in Canada have already had theirs about a month ago, but here down here in the States, we're getting ready. We gotta find the right recipe. We've got 30 teams to look across and figure out what kind of recipe we can build for each team for them to have a great Thanksgiving and a 2026 boondoggle of a year. Boondoggle? No, that's the wrong word. To have a 2026 blast of a year. So we're going to see there's a lot to talk about. Matt, how you doing, brother?
I'm envious. I'm envious that you guys are about to get more pie and to get stuffing and the whole thing. I would do it twice if I could. So I might just cheer you guys on with a makeshift Thanksgiving dinner of my own.
Well, since you've already had yours, you've been able to look at the ingredients. I know you've been looking at ingredients a lot the last few days of when it comes to the players and the activity, and there has been a lot going on. I mean, a couple of weeks ago, there was a couple of drops going here and there, a little drib, a little drab. And I mean, big one for us being Rays fans, of course, was seeing Pete Fairbanks go. See, I think that we still have Brandon Lau, which in some ways is a surprise. But there's been a whole lot of movement all across MLB just today alone. I mean, some folks will talk about today. I like to hit Kyle Tucker, Dylan Cease, Anthony Rendon, Jake Fraley. There's all kinds of good folks. Who's on the top of your little list today?
That's been moved. I think Sonny Gray, to me, if you're looking at what happened last year and it basically coming down in the AL to the Yankees, Mariners, and Blue Jays really dominating things in the American League, then the Red Sox were sort of, they had the talents, but they were missing some pieces. They weren't really calibrated, right? Is
Yeah.
what you would say. But by bringing Sonny Gray in, assuming he stays healthy and he can keep performing the way he has, you're putting together between him and Crochet some guys that are really going to be tough to beat on a day-to-day basis. And it's going to maintain some consistency that the Red Sox were lacking before. And to me, he just shifts the balance. And so you don't know what the Yankees are going to get from Garrett Cole and his return from injury. The Yankees have a lot of question marks with Carlos Rodon, Clark Schmidt. They've got a lot of up and coming young pitchers, but who aren't really exactly proven. So, but then when you look at the balance of power in the AL East, and you take away Grayson Rodriguez from the Orioles, you add in the Dylan Cease and the Blue Jays, and suddenly you're saying, okay, is it now a Red Sox Blue Jays heavy or favorite division? There's a good argument for it.
How long do they last? And it's we know from past conversations, even with Jane Levy, from some of the folks she talked about. She said that the word was in the Rays organization, just wear the arms out, we'll bring another one up. And that seems to be the strategy. So what are we willing to pay a pitcher when what are those expectations? Often, Matt, I think that we pay more than probably pay them less than what they're worth today, but we put them on a longer contract just so that we can keep them and keep them happy with that team. And in effect, then there's all kinds of bonuses that are put in play as far as whatever their achievements are year to year. And those come into play also as far as what that player is going to be able to reap from their talent.
Right. And you also have to understand that, if you sign a pitcher like the Blue Jays just signed Dylan Cease for 7 years, they're not expecting him to be healthy 7 years, right? They fully understand that there may be a 1.5 year lapse at some point in that span, but they're willing to accept that to get the other 5.5 years from him because he is, that kind of talent that can push you to the next level. But the most interesting thing out of that deal with the Blue Jays and Dylan Cease is that when the Blue Jays lost out on Shohei Ohtani, word is that they were willing to go above what the Dodgers did dollar-wise. And he just accepted less money to go to the Dodgers, right? That was what came out in the news afterwards. So when you take $500 million and you give it to Vladdy Guerrero Jr., and then you take the $210 million and you give it to Dylan Cease, that proves the fact that they probably were willing to go to 710 million for Shohei Ohtani. And I don't know if it's the scheme of how the payouts were going to work out that, Shohei preferred the other way, or if he just wanted to be in California for all kinds of reasons. It's an interesting deal because it gives credence to a front office that was really torn apart when that fell through for the Blue Jays.
Yeah.
So for them, it's a significant move, and one that, Mark, for the first time ever, the Blue Jays will be above the luxury tax in 2026.
Who'd have thunk it, man? I tell you what, after being that close to winning the World Series, a 7 game World Series, my gosh, this has to be one of the best ever. And to be within a hair of just a play or two could have made all the difference, of bringing that trophy home. And I realize it sounds like they've made that commitment. But as far as that large monetary commitment, that willingness to take on the luxury tax and say, "Hi, I'm a major market. I'm just as big as what they're doing in LA and New York, et cetera." Are they? Is there more that they're willing to take on with Bo Bichette?
But there's a good chance. It's one of those. If there's another way, because I don't know where Bo Bichette's head is. I don't know what but never mind the Blue Jays. Let's leave the Blue Jays out of it right now.
Okay.
He's been working in Vladdy Guerrero Jr.'s shadow the entire time that he's been in Toronto, despite putting up elite numbers as a shortstop and offensively anyway, and being one of those staple guys that you really can change a lineup with if you bring him aboard. So I think he wants to get a chance to be part of a different team to put his stamp on that team. That's what my gut tells me. I don't know if that's fact or not. I don't know if that's the way it'll turn out. I can't, get in his head and know exactly. But there are landing spots, like with the Braves, for instance. He could easily walk onto the Braves and take him to a whole other level
Oh yeah.
if they decide to sign him, right? And that's with Ronald Acuna Jr. And eventually, if Ronald Acuna Jr. leaves the Braves, they still have a staple bat in their lineup and they're able to build around him. Alex Anthopoulos loves him. That's just one of the examples I can use. The Blue Jays, though, like leaving away the Bichette question aside, if you're Trey Yesavage, right, you just had this experience, this
Oh
wonderful
wow.
moment and series and all the memories about it. But then, you don't know what to expect the next year. So what do the Blue Jays do? Well, they surround you with Kevin Gausman, who's 35, very experienced, knowledgeable. You went through the battle with him that, this offseason. You know him well. Jose Berríos will be back with them. He's 31. Dylan Cease, they bring in, he's 30. And Shane Bieber. Those are your four other guys that you're sitting on the bench with, learning from.
Oh yeah.
All of them are right-handers. All of them can help you learn your craft. You want this pitch, you go to that guy. You want this pitch, you go to that guy. You want to, like Trey Savage is just surrounded by the kind of thing that you want to be surrounded by. So, I mean, you talk about going into a season with confidence. I'm envious of what they've built now by having that kind of camaraderie and understanding that the benefits are going to go well beyond the contracts that they've signed these guys to, because Trey Savage then will become that leader that every single other prospect coming in through the Blue Jays will learn from, and he'll
Mm.
pass on those things, right? So now you're building a legacy. That's what's happening. And not only that, Mark, but Ricky Tiedeman's been struggling with his health for I don't know how long. There's a very good chance he ends up in the pen now. And he's a very highly skilled pitcher. All of their other pitchers behind him, Eric Lauer, who's a lefty, he becomes a long reliever. He can strengthen their pen. All their AAA talents that they have that aren't very like, if they want to start behaving like the Yankees, those are not the guys that you lean on going into a season. They're the
Right.
guys that you plug holes with once in a while, like when you need to. But you want to be armed and ready, when you go into the playoffs with the lean and mean guys.
Yep.
So that's what they've built. And I applaud them for it because it's the first time in an off season where I see the Blue Jays fully going for it and saying, we are here, this is us, and we're ready to fight and pounce on it now.
That is a heck of a commitment and more than one that I would have guessed to make at the beginning of the season. I should say the beginning of 2025. But of course, they did at that point. They had already made that or were in the middle of making that commitment with Vladdy Jr. So that much was already there. Well, looking across all the rest of MLB, unless you got something else we should add about
I
our good
just,
friends in Toronto.
it's not that, Mark. You know what it is? So we've just spoken about the Jays going out and spending $710 million between two players, right?
Yeah,
And so the Rays go out and get an outfielder they supposedly want, right? And then they put him on waivers because they don't or DFA him. I can't remember what they did.
they DFA'd him.
Yeah, and then because he was going to get paid 3.6 million and they wanted to shave, a half million off of that.
Thank you. I mean, my notes for today, I wrote down here. I said Jake Fraley,
Yeah.
drafted by the Rays in 2016. And some movement elsewhere. Oh, and then we brought him in, and then we DFA'd him about a week or less ago, and it was because going into arbitration, he would make more than if we actually were able to bring him back and negotiate with him as a free agent. And that's what they've done. They've taken him, they've taken it away from him as far as arbitration. They've made him a free agent, and now they're going to pay him less. So some things don't change, but come on, guys. That just seems heartless.
Yeah, it's more or less saying, well, I don't know if there was an angle in terms of like they knew what Jake wanted, where he wanted to
Yeah.
live. There was reasons behind it, but it sounds or feels more like, go ahead, go out there and see who wants you for this amount of money. And then he came back and he signed for the amount that they said. I don't know if it was exactly what they had, asked for.
Well,
But it's the feeling behind the franchise, right? Like where are you in your aggressiveness to build? Like they know the outfield is their problem. So they went out and got Ryan Vladdy, who's not really proven by any means, and Jake Fraley, who's league average. Sure, when he's healthy and he's playing well, that's about it. And then you got Chandler Simpson in center field, who has no power and elite speed. Is that really an outfield that is going to compete with the Red Sox, Yankees, and Blue Jays? Not even close. Like you're to me, you're taking steps backwards. Like, so where are we? Like, as a Rays fan, you should be like just frustrated, right?
hmm,
I don't want to say it, too far because yeah, there's potential. Like, players exceed expectations and they take that next step sometimes and they surprise. But the Rays are nowhere near where they need to be with their outfield depth. And I don't know if they're banking a lot on some of those young guys like Homer Bush Jr. and whatever
oh
else
yeah.
to arrive quickly. I don't know if they plan on shifting positions in some cases and we just don't see it. Um, they may have more faith than and sometimes that faith works out. So, you gotta know that that's also a possibility. But, just sitting back and hoping for something of significance, it gets to be a little bit tedious if you're a Rays fan and you're just sitting there going, when is that move coming? And so to me, Mark, the one, if you want Thanksgiving, if he wants to give us some sort of gravy to put on the turkey and it'll make all that cheap turkey taste better, right? Because you're sitting there with a little tiny frozen butterball that's not even butterball, but it's go and extend Junior Caminero. Like do that. Like put your staple on the guy before he costs you a $500 million. You know, lock him up, show the fans and everybody else that you mean business for the future, regardless of how tedious your outfield makeup is. And then we'll enjoy that gravy. We might even add some stuffing and and we'll have a little bit of fun with it to start the season and we'll give them a little bit of leeway before we tear them apart.
Yeah, I've got my Walmart shopping list together so I can have the perfect, Thanksgiving dinner. So we'll see how that works out. But it is about finding the right ingredients. And the word generic doesn't come to mind when I think of the type of players I want in the outfield for the Rays. But
Mhm,
we need more. Okay,
mhm.
I'm drawing a blank here. Who was the gentleman we had playing third a couple of years ago? Oh, I just loved him. I can't remember
Joey
his name.
Wendell.
No, I love you. Joy's one. Who came after him?
Who came after Joey? There was Isaac Paredes.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Isaac Paredes. I absolutely adored Isaac Paredes. I loved what the man did at the plate. I loved his demeanor out there on third base. And it was like, man, that we had more of that kind of gumption and talent, both at bat and out there in the field. That is something to me. So I'm thinking Richie Palacios, we've had him all over the place. When you say Joey Wendell, I kind of think of Richie sometimes too, as far as a utility player that you could possibly pick him up and put him in different places.
Yep.
But do you see Richie out in the out? Who was your perfect outfield? Well, he's
Before we
not.
even get to the perfect outfield, you have to realize that two of them don't have options, and they're the two of the three highest paid outfielders. Jake Fraley, who they just signed, and Ryan Vladdy, if they sign them to that arbitration amount, would end up being two guys that they can't option down. So those are two locks.
Okay.
And you have Chandler Simpson, who I don't believe they're going to send to AAA. I still think he's too significant for the offense and the tools and everything else. So then you're looking at potentially two spots. Sometimes you can go with four outfielders. So, you're looking at you've got Josh Lowe, Johnny DeLuca, Richie Palacios. Uh, I don't think Tristan Gray is in there, but Jake Mangum is the other one, the other
Yeah.
big. You've got four big guys, or I say big, Rays big guys that are competing for that spot. And I would say if you're looking at it from a Rays point of view and who's most marketable, right? I don't think Josh Lowe is very marketable right now.
No.
I don't think that Richie Palacios is either because he dealt with so many injuries. Now, Johnny DeLuca dealt with injuries as well, but his defensive profile means that he gets more leeway, right? So if
Yeah.
you wanted to market him to another team, you may be able to get something of significance. But Jake Mangum is the guy that I think that they can market most because of the attitude, the team, willingness to work hard, to hit, with every play. And he has a similar profile to Chandler Simpson in that he's going to hit major league pitching and he's going to work, run hard enough to make a lot of those infield hits happen. But it's only a certain amount of teams can handle that as a fourth outfielder. So it would have to be a team that's looking for that or also for elite defense in center field. So when I look at the Mets, for instance, right, they've got a lot of high-end outfield prospects. They would be a team that I could see being really interested in Jake Mangum to lengthen their lineup, give their bottom of their lineup more, and they just dealt away Brandon Nemo. So,
Yeah.
so that
Ooh,
might
forgot
open
about
up a role for him. To me, that's a possibility in terms of the Rays getting involved with them in a deal. But there's other ones. I think the Padres just lost Luis Arraez, and he's a lot of the similar player as Jake Mangum. They also need depth in the outfield. There's a lot of teams out there that could use somebody like Jake Mangum. So to me,
that.
he's one of those guys that if the Rays wanted to pair him with Brandon Lau in a deal, that would be intriguing. The Royals come to mind at that point and a whole bunch of other teams. So, anyways, all that to say that I think the Rays outfield is like a stew. They're putting together a stew. They're throwing some carrots, they're throwing some onions. It's not really Thanksgiving meal, but but it is yummy when it's done right.
Well, geez, I don't know. You're just seeing the Rays and all of these changes and seeing so many players last year coming up from the minor leagues. It was exciting. It was very exciting to see. And the whole idea of a lot of these guys, it'll be the first time they've been seen in the trop, that's going
Yeah.
to be something new too. Wow. But and everything looks like it's moving along. I think our opening day is like after there's 6 games, and then we have our opening day. I don't think, yeah, we're not first out of the gate. I think that's some leeway. They're trying to make sure that the trop's probably ready by then.
You just had me thinking though, Mark. We're only 2 months and like a week away from spring training. Like that's that's right around the corner.
Oh yeah. Pitchers and catchers report. Yeah, pitchers and
Yeah,
catchers report.
exactly.
Wow. Well, and you think about all these players now, they're still free agents before that. I mean, we've seen other guys take it right to the deadline and even beyond. So we're looking at Kyle Tucker. We're looking at Alonso. Who am I not? There's a few others. Well, Pete Fairbanks, free agent too. And I'm really curious to see where a lot of these guys land. And certainly, being a Tampa boy, I am certainly curious to see Kyle Tucker and Pete Alonso. But I hear the Cubs got quite a bit of interest, and maybe even the Dodgers as far as Kyle Tucker. So we'll see how that plays out.
So, like just knowing the experience and what they've done to this point, who do you think has a bigger impact as a free agent signing, Kyle Tucker or Alex Bregman?
Yeah.
Let's say the Blue Jays do miss out on Bichette, right? What if they signed Alex Bregman instead, who's friends
Mm.
with George Springer, right? And then you use Andres Jimenez at shortstop. He's a fine shortstop, right? And you can either pick Bregman at third or Bregman at second. Like you've got the choice because they have versatility with Barger and Clement and all these guys. So if the Jays do miss out on Bo Bichette or they're not comfortable with the money because he's looking for 300 million, let's say, then I could easily see them targeting Alex Bregman as a fallback option. He knows the AL East very well. Like I said, he's a playoff performer. He's somebody that you know will never find a moment too big. So that would be but again, I go back to that. Okay, so do you want to risk the smaller time frame? Because Alex Bregman is only going to look for 2, 3, 4 years. You know, it's a minimal risk. Whereas I think Kyle Tucker's looking at 7, 8, 9 years. And as an outfielder of his style, 20 home runs, 20 stolen bases now, but it's gonna, go down over time. Is that really worth it? Like because of, I don't know.
Well, marketability, as far as just the excitement that comes with Bregman right now, is so huge, and that's certainly not taking anything away from Kyle because Kyle is amazing,
Mhm.
and I'm reacting emotionally and not scientifically to what the history is going to be of those players. I fully understand after seeing him playing through those injuries that there's going to be more of that, and
Right.
uh, it would take a whole different kind of contract. It would have to be something maybe very substantial for a year or two, but then realizing he ain't going to be there. Kyle
Right.
Tucker, yeah, I could see 5 to 7 more years out of Kyle.
Right. Well, Bregman is 31, Tucker is 28. So there's the difference, right? You're talking about a
Yeah,
3 year. So, you can kind of fill in the blanks. I think Bregman's played more games contract wise though. He always has the ops out. He's not really comfortable with the deals he's signing. So that's kind of an unnerving part of signing him if you're a team. It may be extremely short term. It might be 1 year, it might be two, because there's always going to be those things. So you have to plan accordingly. But that's why I think the Jays are perfect because they have fallback options and they have ways to move people around to mitigate, that kind of risk. So the interesting thing, and the reason I bring it up is because Bregman's had a season of 7.9 F4, 8.3 F4. Just recently in 2022, he had 5.4 F4, and otherwise he's been at 4 to 4.5, right?
right.
And so when you look at Tucker, he's basically been at 4.5 the entire time. That's the or
Yeah,
4.9, I think is his high. So just under five. So like there's a ceiling to what you're gonna get with Tucker, and those are his prime years. So this is why I'm saying you never want to pay for what they did. You want to pay for what they're going to do, right?
yeah,
And so with Tucker, my feeling is somebody's gonna overpay and they're gonna regret it. That's what I'm coming down to. Is I think they're gonna pay him like he's an elite outfielder and it's going to come out. And I'm not saying he's going to be Anthony Randone bad.
no.
Let's not go to that
Oh,
level. But it's not. It's going to be like you order the filet mignon and you get the shank steak. Like that kind of thing. So I don't know. I don't know where Kyle Tucker lands. I'm hoping the Rays can somewhat be a sneaky landing spot, but I really doubt it. My feeling is more like he wants to be in a contender now, and the Red Sox or somebody like that will jump in and fill out their roster because
Hmm.
at Roman Anthony and Kyle Tucker on your corners, I mean, that's pretty outstanding.
I would say so. I would say so. And I'm looking here at a number I wrote down. I can't remember the source at the moment, but they had Kyle Tucker. Maybe it's with the Dodgers and saying 400 million. And I was like, wow, never mind. It's yeah. Well, they're the freaking
A
Dodgers. They're
lot
good.
of money for
There's
like, I want to put it in context, Mark, right? So
yeah.
this year he hit 25 home runs, he had 22 stolen bases, right? Randy Arozarena blew that out of the water. Like, come on. So he's got 27 home runs and 31 stolen bases, Randy does. So why are they willing to pay so much more for Kyle? I don't understand it. I look at the numbers and as a stats guy, I'm like, I think I traded him in two of my three leagues for guys that I got more out of in
Yeah.
dynasty leagues. And I'm like, I don't understand the attraction. I understand the player's great. I'm not downplaying the player, but yeah, I just don't think the money is worth it. Like there's better ways to fill your outfield. I don't want to go to the Rays way of doing it, but there's better ways of doing it with elite guys without having to spend that kind of crazy money. Because the problem is, you might get really good production for 2 or 3 years. Oh, the deal I would compare it to, Mark, I just had this thought, is Vernon Wells. Vernon Wells, when the Blue Jays signed him, it was the last big contract they did before, they had a long lull after that. They basically, gave it to Alex Anthopoulos and said, "Can you please get rid of this hot potato?" And nobody wanted him, but he got him off the budget sheet by sending him over to the Angels. I think he ended up getting Mike Napoli and another guy for him, and everybody was like, I can't believe you offloaded that contract. It was like a miracle. But
Jeez.
you get stuck with these contracts that you can't move. And Nolan Arenado would be another example more recently with the Cardinals. And you're sort of going, okay, well now like everything we do financially is hampered because we're stuck with this. Joey Votto with the Reds is another good example. Like they couldn't offload him, and he was a franchise player on top of it, so they're stuck with it. Um, so I don't know. Like, and then another telling point, Mark, is the Cubs gave up a lot to go and land Kyle Tucker. Have they extended him before he hit free agency? No.
No.
What does that tell you? Just that in itself, like before you go on, whatever, they haven't signed him now to this point, and I don't even hear they're really heavily involved in trying to re-sign him.
Yeah.
That's a huge telling point. I don't know.
No, I see it. I mean, especially like you're saying, if your own team is not saying you're worth 400 million, why should anybody else? Well, when we're serving the Thanksgiving dinner, we know that the Dodgers are going to have plenty of gravy to spill. I got that. I got that. If they want him, they got him. And it's probably best for him and that team for him not to go anywhere else, but not for that kind of money. But you were mentioning Anthony Rendon. Now, that is not a Thanksgiving present. That's a gift being taken away early underneath the Christmas tree, and it hurts. Do you want to address some of that?
I do, because to me, you know what it brought back memories of, Mark, because I know they're negotiating a buyout of some sort, right?
Yeah,
And to me, I don't even know why there's a negotiation. Um, if we go back to when Gil Mesh left the Royals, okay?
yeah,
Gil Mesh was signed. He had $12 million coming to him. He gave it back to the Royals. He said, I'm done. I'm walking away. Here's your money. He didn't negotiate. He said, I'm not working, so here's your money. Whereas Anthony Rendon is saying, you know what, you signed me to this, you're beholden to it. Now I want something for it. Even though Mark, it's ridiculous. The guy has averaged through this deal with the Angels 43 games a year on
yeah.
average. His performance is not only like I understand there's mental health issues, right? And this is I go back to the Josh Hamilton deal that the Angels did and the Anthony Rendon as examples of having to evaluate somebody's character and mental health well-being before you sign them to long-term deals.
Mm.
In each case, if they had gone to a 2-year deal or minimized the financial impacts and it gave that player more support with mental health issues, yeah, earlier on and gotten more involved on that front, or just not brought him into the organization well to begin
Yeah.
with, right?
Yeah.
They would be much better off. But that, you know what? That's one of those things you don't see on the scouting profile. I haven't seen a mental health rating from Baseball America saying, "Oh, mental health on this guy is 80 out of 80." Like, no, it doesn't exist, but it should be. It should be on there. There should be a like the clutch factor. We talk about the clutch factor, but shows up in big moments, right? There should be a big moments rating. There should be a great teammate rating, yada, 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 all these kinds of things that are very important.
Oh yeah.
We watched the Blue Jays last season support each other, cheer each other on, be really, um, you know, showing off what the team aspect can do for you. And the Rays did the same thing against the Dodgers back in 2020. Like the team spirit, you don't even have to go any further than Randy Arozarena and Brett Phillips doing dance competitions on the sidelines, like to know that that matters. That's
Yeah.
a huge component of a team. So when you bring somebody like Anthony Rendon in, who I would compare to Eeyore, the donkey on
Hell
Winnie the
you.
Pooh. Yeah, that's what he comes across as. He's just always down, always, oh, everything is too heavy, everything's too much stress. There's too much baseball being played.
Yes.
Oh, like it just gets to be very. You show up to work and you're exhausted before you even start. So I'm glad that they're moving on, Mark, and it may be the best addition they do in the entire offseason is by
Jeez.
moving on from Anthony Rendon and just saying we want to breathe new life into this and hand the reins to somebody else. And the one person I can see benefiting most from that is Mike Trout. I think
Mm.
it'll really energize the entire group to the point where they're able to have fun again and loosen up and get to be happy about going to the ballpark
I
every
would
day.
love to see that for the Angels, I tell you. I would absolutely love to see that for the Angels. Yeah, you know, talking about Trout, my mind goes to this photo of him leaving the dugout, or maybe it's leaving the at bat area, and he's walking toward home plate. And it's a shot from seeing him at the backside. And as he's walking up to home plate, you can see the guy on the mound, and it's Shohei Ohtani, World Baseball Classic. And the power of that image to me, I mean, it stays with me constantly, obviously. I'm excited because we were talking the last show, I believe, it's 3 years. That doesn't seem like 3 years. I mean, of course, it always seems like the birthday that you want to come soon again, and it's going to be here again. It's going to be here sooner than we think. What is it? March. I guess by then we'll be looking at everybody getting warmed up for that, and they'll be thinking about that before they'll be thinking of actually taking spring training. Some players. So it's going to be an exciting time. Our good buddy Lou Schiff's he has his season tickets with the Marlins, which gives him first crack at a lot of things with the World Baseball Classic. But that's going to be it's going to be an exciting time. I'm looking forward to this World Baseball Classic, Matt. I really am. To me, it is great to see all this wonderful talent and players that we have here. We've seen them play for other countries, and certainly with like the Dominican Republic or Mexico. Randy Rosarina, Cuban, but he's now Mexican. He went ahead and I think his citizenship is with them. He considers that his home country now. So
Mhm.
he plays for them. And seeing all these players, with other countries come together. One last thing, I want to jump back to Randy Rosarina. I still feel like people don't talk about him enough because a lot of people just don't realize who he is and what he's done. Being with the Rays, you almost are in obscurity from the rest of the baseball world because we've been such a small market. And the Mariners, should have elevated him, and Cal Riley, and some of the others. But coming back again to the World Baseball Classic, this thing can't come fast enough for me.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's given us a surprising amount of moments. It seems like every year there's something different that happens that just is unexpected, right? And I still remember like not only the Shohei Ohtani and Mike Trout angle, but also the fact that Yamamoto and Ohtani ran the show for Japan. This is before Yamamoto had committed to
Yep.
go to the Dodgers. But then everybody started whispering, "Oh, what if Yamamoto joins Ohtani?" You know? And it was like becoming a thing, right? So you get those moments, but every team has those moments where I think the United States have a lot to prove now that Japan has won it twice.
Right.
There's a lot to, play for on that front. The Cubans want to start showing well. The Dominican Republic, I mean, you're talking about a powerful lineup and a powerful roster. I still wish, Mark, that there was a way for this to happen in season, though, because the pitching is just always going to be lacking, and you're never going to have the guys in sync to the point where you can say, this is the elites of all these countries fully synchronized, all systems go. Because the pitching is always going to be holding back. It's always going to be tedious. It's always going to be a little bit more lackluster than you would have otherwise, right? And it's just the way that it is, and I don't think there's a way to make it more like I know we spoke last time about the soccer aspect where they have it in certain months, so they spread it out. So let's say the WBC was played out over the span of 6 months where you have a game here, you have a game there, yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, that is tedious, and I
Yeah.
don't think the teams would go for it, right, in Major League Baseball, but it happens in other sports. I just think the injury risk in soccer is
Mm.
nowhere near what it is for a pitcher in Major League Baseball, right, or in WBC. So the angle is just completely different.
So do we put a pause in the middle of the season and do we set aside the whole idea of all-star games and replace it with the WBC?
How valuable is the All-Star game? I personally think that the All-Star game can easily be put at the end of the season
Yeah.
and encompass the entire season's worth of games instead of the halfway point. You would have to stop calling it the Midsummer Classic, but it could be the end fall classic.
Yep.
Whatever you want to do. But I definitely think that has credence. Like it should be evaluated as a potential shift. Because if you have it midsummer, I don't know how quickly you could play, but if you're stretching that All-Star break by another 3 days, is that really, the end of the world? You could just extend the end of the season, like playoff wise, into deeper into October, basically before it starts. Um, so yeah, I think that has value, Mark. I think that would be a much better thing for the game of baseball, whether or not it's the best thing for MLB.com, like businesses.
Right.
That's the other question.
It's interesting to look to as far as I don't know if interdependency is the correct word or not between leagues. And by that, I mean, if you look at uh, you look at if professional sports, National Hockey League, Football League, baseball, there's like 1 week or 1 day where all of the major sports organizations have a game going on the same day. And that's if you have too much of that overlap, how much does that impede any one of those sports? Then you go one step further and you say, who else shares these fields? Well, obviously, you've got the minor league teams, that you have then most currently the Women's Professional Baseball League. They're not really competing on the same fields as the MLB, but they're still audience. And you're to be able to capture that audience, it's every baseball player, excuse me, every baseball fan probably splinters their interest in different things, whether it be fantasy baseball,
Mhm.
whether it be just a specific league or whatever. So it's difficult for all those other leagues. Now, I want to mention the Women's Professional Baseball League because I happened to go down to Fort Myers And there I was at JetBlue Park, Fenway South, as they called each name from the draft. And it was broadcast on TikTok, it was broadcast on YouTube. I'm standing there amongst several of these young women who were going to be part of that draft. Many of them who were actually playing in a tournament nearby at the Roy Hobbs Women's Baseball Tournament World Series. So that was something in itself. And what came to mind is during this whole process was the total amount of talent that has been striving to be there. There was months ago in DC, over 600 players that were being evaluated as potentially being part of the draft. That got shaken down after looking over it to approximately 130, 120. The draft the other day, they picked 120 players. Now, of that, there's 4 teams. And what you're going to wind up with then is 30 players per team. But when the Women's Pro Baseball League begins, each one of those teams will be pared down to a 15-player team. So it's an exciting time right now for all those players and the variety of the type of people that you have in there. I mean, we were talking about Japanese earlier. Yami Sato, she's definitely one of them. She was like, I think, the second in the draft. The first one is Kelsey Whitmore, who's just been an astonishing young woman, even with the USA women's national team. There were so many, I think there's probably about 14 of the women who were in that 120 who had been with the USA women's national team. And there were at least 2 of the advisors or coaches that were from the USA women's national team. So it's good to see the pool of talent that they were able to bring in, for that whole draft. Matt, I got to tell you, I did have to bite my tongue because I'm standing out there on the field, leaning up against the netting, and families are behind us, and the screen out there at JetBlue on the big jumbotron type device is out there playing. And after the first introduction of what's beginning to start, whose face arrives on the screen? Rob Manfred, and I'm like, OMG. And, God love him. I just wish that the resources that MLB is putting behind the Women's Softball League is comparable to what they would do the same with the Women's Pro Baseball League, considering that it is baseball. Now, I don't have any reason to believe that they've done nothing, but I'm pretty sure that they haven't done anything as much as because they were highly endorsing the whole Women's Pro Softball League, before. So we'll see what comes of it.
It is an oddity because, the women's professional soccer league came in. There was no question of soccer with a different size ball. It was soccer. Same thing with hockey. They didn't change the net size. They didn't change the puck. They just said it's hockey. So they did a professional women's hockey league. The WNBA, yes, it uses a ball that's a slightly smaller one than what the men use. But you're talking about guys that have giant hands. Like, does it really matter? It doesn't really matter. So my point is the baseball softball question is a unique one because it's so ingrained in so many different communities that girls, for whatever reason, sign up for softball. They don't sign up very much for baseball. And I see it in Canada. Like I see it in a lot of places. Even high school girls who have tiny hands still end up playing softball, and then I'm like, why? Where did this start? Why does it's one of those, self-feeding prophecies that I have no idea why it exists and why anybody thinks it's an improvement on anything. They can hardly squeeze their gloves to catch the
Yeah.
ball, because it's so big. So you know, I I think once it gets on the screen and the stars that you're talking about, and there's lots more coming and and behind them, they're gonna have highlights and things happening. Now, this is why I've said to you before that the first one of those two that gets itself set up in major league parks, or at least AAA parks, with a TV deal is
Yeah.
going to be that's the winner. right? So that's the chase. That's the baton, right? That's the place where you want to be first. When you get there, because then you'll be on the screens. Are people really going to watch both highlights? Yes, but they're not going to cheer on two teams from New York saying, okay, the we have the New York softball team and we have the New York baseball team.
Right.
It's going to be harder to get as much good support as it is to get the support for just one. So I mean, New York's a bad example because they could probably support both. But you know what I'm saying. Like if
Let's
you're in,
bring back the Giants while we're at it, you know.
yeah, exactly. So I wish them all the best. I hope that, if both can be successful, by all means.
Yeah.
But I would take it one step further, Mark. At a time when I would say, in terms of society, there's a lot of challenges being brought back to the forefront for women. It is great to see that nothing is getting in the way of progress on that front.
Yep.
Right? And that is outstanding. I lift my hat to every single woman that's been a part of any of these leagues and getting them going and getting them set up. It's not easy in a very male-dominated world. I'm hoping that there's a lot of women who are executives within the investing companies and powers that be that are a part of that and that, will help protect it and move it forward the way it should. There's still more hurdles to cross, as we saw with the NBA and salaries and things like that that they need to do. But you know what? The NHL had to do the same thing, Mark. Ted Lindsay had to fight like hell to get everybody on board with a union in hockey, and that was the only time they were able to actually get things going against the owners who were oppressing their salaries big time. Like they were just not paying them whatsoever. So every league, every single aspect, whether male, female, you're a worker, you're a worker, you're an executive, you're an executive. You're going to treat things completely different. So that's a battle that's going to be going on for the rest of time,
Oh yeah.
and it needs to be recognized as such, right? So I love that for society. I think a lot of girls will benefit from it. The ones that are watching, the ones that are taking part in school. Like my daughters play sports. Yeah, it's great for everybody to see women finally rise, have professional sports in all avenues, and promote them, watch them, enjoy them. It's great. I love it.
And that's the thing. I mean, one little weird piece I'll throw here at the end just for fun. Parents post their kids' sports and all this. Did you see the other day where there are, it was a hockey league, I believe, people who own some of these hockey rinks have a rule that you cannot stream your child's playing there live if you're like 12 years old. It, because they own the rights and of what's going on out there. I'll post something about this. It's
Good.
very disturbing, Matt. So if you've got it, a young daughter out there on the rink inside and you're recording her, you probably get by with a little bit of it. But if you were streaming something, buddy, they'll come down hard on you.
You know what I know what this is probably going towards, Mark? A lot of these leagues will charge the parents money for games. So they'll
Yeah.
send them the rights to kind of, and so for dancing, right? That was the one for our girls. They were part of a dance group, and if you wanted to see the routines, you had to buy the video. And so to get access to the video, you had to pay an extra $30. And so they're getting the same as what your streaming service, charges you for a full month. It's ridiculous.
Well, can
It's
mom and dad still shoot footage of the event?
no, they don't allow it. And they'll actually penalize your dance group if you do, and they'll
Oh
kick you
my.
out. Yeah. So I don't think they do that in hockey. Yeah. Don't want to give them
Oh,
any ideas.
no, 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 no. Okay. Well, I'm about ready to go to get everything the fixings for the turkey here, my friend, and I'll have to see what I can wrap up. Which do you have any recipes what you did for you guys for your own Thanksgiving? I'd love to hear some of that for something special.
Honestly, we're pretty bland in terms of overall, but one thing that we do like that is kind of one of those taboo ones that everybody doesn't seem to like is the Brussels sprouts. But if you do them
Ooh.
right with garlic, olive oil. You make sure that they're a little bit blackened so that they actually have a little bit more of a carcinogenic kind of taste. But
You put
stuff,
some bacon with that too, my friend?
that's right. But the Canadian bacon in the stuffing is definitely one of our go-tos, and
Wow.
you want to make sure that you have everybody's favorite on the table. As long as you have that, everybody's happy, right?
And all I want to do is I want to thank all of you all who listen to us each week, and I'm very thankful for that and your all support. And I mentioned earlier this year I had some things going on, and your all support meant a lot to me then too. But it's enjoying the game. It's about gratitude, and it's so easy to get upset and to curse others and call someone names. Try to find in your heart and your mind those moments of peace and thanksgiving. Hopefully, you're sharing some of it with your friends and family. If not, find your own peace there. And there's always great games on YouTube. All right. Happy Thanksgiving, everybody.
You have been listening to Baseball Biz on Deck. Just a reminder, if you enjoyed this show, go ahead, like, and subscribe to Baseball Biz on Deck. Also, you can find Matt at matgermain.b Sky Social. That's Matt at matgermain.b Sky Social, or Mark at baseballbizondeck.b Sky Social. You may also find Baseball Biz on Deck at iHeart, Apple, Spotify, Amazon Music, and at baseballbizondeck.com. Special thanks to XTakeRUX for the music, Rocking Forward.